Okay, guys, constructive conspiracy theory time. I've been thinking about it, and I'm probably sure other people have said it, maybe even better. But I've been thinking about it's like, why is Hollywood so intent on offending people to the point of losing money? And I'm beginning to think that it's like, are they really what they say they are? I think that a lot of these people that work for the government, work for the deep state, they surround themselves with well-meaning but brainwashed people so that those innocent people, well, not completely innocent, but those well-meaning people are sacrificed. So that whenever we finally get fed up with something that the government is doing, they'll have that aspect of what they're doing surrounded by white people, black people, millennials, baby boomers, whatever. And the thing is, although some people may be more guilty than others, it's really just surrounding themselves as a buffer zone. Look at nature. A kangaroo mother, when she's being chased by a predator, will sometimes drop her baby Joey as a sacrificial lamb, so while her baby is getting eaten, she can get away. Now, that's a pretty grim way to start off this video, but keep that in mind whenever I say this. I am going to promote a theory, a different way of looking at something that's already been said, that maybe Hollywood and Disney, maybe they're not really a business for making money. Maybe they're an extension of the government. You notice how with freedom of speech it stops the government from censoring you? But then under a corporation, they can censor you because it's not part of the government? Well, then how can a government censor you yet still keep its hands clean? Well, then it gets basically lets corporations take over a large space where we talk so that the corporations can censor us because so many of us have put our eggs into one basket, whether it's Facebook or YouTube. So the thing is, you technically have the right to say what you want outside of YouTube and Facebook, but nobody's hardly there. It's going to take a while for you to build up another place that's more tolerant because all of these outlets of the flow of information are controlled by monopolies, whether they're old school monopolies or big tech giants. These things are extensions of the government. It's just that the government is able to attack you through them. It used to be that we were thinking that corporations would attack you through the government, and maybe that's true, but I'm beginning to think that it's also right now when it comes to the suppression of freedom of speech, governments attack you through corporations. Because think about what it is. The government, if the government just up and put people down for being a conspiracy theorist, it would make them look bad. But now that anybody who's trying to promote something, the only place to go, the only marketplace to go for ideas is like Facebook or YouTube, and any of the alternatives any of the alternatives are corporate owned, and nobody goes there because everybody is going to the Walmart of information, which is YouTube and Facebook. So now that those things can be controlled by corporations that are in bed with the government, they can censor you. And you say, well, then you have the right to say something somewhere else. Yes, but consequentially, everything else is basically like to the wayside. It's underfunded. The government centralized power and resources into these monopolies. They centralize power and resources into these monopolies to where it's like, okay, you can get away with posting a controversial conspiracy theory on Odyssey, but how many people are going to look at it? They technically won. They found a loophole. It's very immoral. It's very evil and sinister, but they technically won. And a lot of people are about what's technically true instead of what's morally true. If you want to get biblical, a lot of people are more about the letter of the law than they are about the spirit of the law. Perhaps because the latter can be subject to interpretation. Although a lot of people who interpret it wrong are being dishonest. So that explains how the government got us, because a lot of conspiracy theories were exposing what was wrong with the government. And then they silenced it on YouTube and Facebook because that's where people were getting it. It was a cultural hub. A lot of people were on Facebook. It was like the marketplace where everybody went to. And any really alternatives to Facebook or YouTube are kind of something that people just do as a hobby. On one hand, this is grotesquely unfair, but they technically won by their own rules. So if we're going to win, one, we have to start making the game where we make our own rules, but two, it's going to be up to people to feed alternatives. because it's kind of like whenever people say shop local. It may be more convenient to go to YouTube, but maybe so that the place that has more freedom gets promoted, and the place that takes away freedom and is already swollen and in a monopoly gets starved. It might be that we have to start opening up accounts and trying to use YouTube as a last resort, because I mean YouTube's already screwing us out of money. So it's kind of like, okay, I could go to Walmart, but Walmart is getting too powerful and it's getting away with a lot of stuff and probably funding some kind of terrorist group or dictator over the seas. So the thing is, you know what? I'm not going to kill myself or hurt myself or hate myself for buying at Walmart, but I'm going to see if I can go shop as many other alternatives as possible, even if it's a slightly higher price, even if it's a bit inconvenient, even if it's not exactly the same quality, out of simple virtue of the fact that Walmart is becoming too powerful and we need the alternatives to get bigger and better so that there's competition that holds Walmart straight. Because the thing is, they're gaming the free market against us. I don't know if I would call it true capitalism, but that's so many subjects for another day. And I wanted to bring up that at the end of the day, these tech giants, these monopolies, the government is attacking us through them. I used to think it was more that corporations wore the pants, but in the background and in the government, it was done through the government against the people. And I think that's how it is. But I think they're also taking turns to where the corporations, the big tech giants, are wearing the pants, and the government is hiding in the background and attacking us through them. Because we want to criticize the government, but then they keep trying to make it to where everybody who criticizes the government is some kind of is like crazy or a fascist or whatever, which is why they keep sending fools to your little truther circles, flat earthers, Nazis, Marxists, racists, whatever, from the left or the right, or religious or secular. They're sending all kinds of crazy people to balkanize you. It's what they do to the Middle East. It's what they do to the Middle East. Every time there's a Middle Eastern country that doesn't like what our government, or rather the monopolies who control the government, the globalists, are doing to them. But the thing is that they might bring up a good voice, and then we, the American people, those of us who have consciences, will say, hey, government, stop doing that bullshit. But then the government says, well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to, let Saudi Arabia basically take over a lot of the Middle East. We're going to fund terrorists, and we're going to overthrow secular governments so that the only thing in the Middle East are terrorists that work for us, that then give us an excuse to bomb everybody else. And we're going to bomb the terrorists, but we're really bombing everybody else. And then we say, see how messed up they are, America? You can't stand up for these people. They're just a bunch of crazy Muslims, and if we wipe out Muslims, we're taking them out of their misery. It's just something that has to happen. They can't handle themselves. They're so crazy and a threat to everybody else. They're just a rabid dog that needs to get put down. But the thing is that that's the way we don't realize that a lot of the problems that they have, not all of them, but a lot of the problems they have are actually knives that got stabbed in their back a long time ago. And then we pulled the handle up, but we broke off the knife in the wound and left it there. And we kept doing weird stuff to it to keep it infected because we want the Middle East to be this crazy hot spot so that we can take their oil and gold, and we can use the fact that it's the religious capital of three huge religions to make it look like some sort of prophecy is being fulfilled, which will make people tolerate another genocide or another war, even though they didn't give a crap about the rest of their religion. They only cared about the part of the religion that could be twisted out of context to make an empire and make themselves feel like they're better than everybody else. Basically a death cult. So the thing is that what I think that you really need to consider is how they've changed up things, how they've flipped spots for this little role-playing deal. Try to understand that what the government is doing is that it's made you very dependent on certain social media outlets. And it's not that they're bad by themselves, but it's the fact that now that they're so powerful and you put all your eggs in that one basket, they can hold you hostage and say, well, if you don't do what I say, we're going to dump out all your eggs. And the point is not to stop giving them a few of your eggs from time to time, because they could provide something, But rather, maybe the thing is what we need to do is what a lot of people say: buy local, use the chain stores as a safety net. You'll probably still use the chain stores a little bit more than local because the local guys are starting out and they're not perfect either. But it's not so much that you want the local guys to like completely obliterate the chain stores as it is that you just kind of want them to exist so that the chain stores get humbled and behave as a deterrent. It's kind of like, the Second Amendment as a deterrent to a tyrannical government. Or it's kind of like, each state supposedly having its own militia as a deterrent for the government to be tyrannical. No one militia is going to be enough to stop the central government, and maybe even all the militias put together might not be enough to stop the central government. But if there's enough militias put together, it would cause the government so much trouble that it would think twice before going, full on. And that's, it's kind of like bees. Unless you're allergic, you're probably not going to die from a bunch of bee stings, but it's going to hurt so damn much that it's like, all right, even though I could tear into this beehive and probably survive, the pain sucks so bad I'm not going to mess with it. So that's all I have to say, is that consider now as a time of boycott. I know it's going to be easier said than done. And it's not about completely living without it, because some things you need it. But we can slowly wean ourselves off of complete dependency on the establishment. That way we promote healthy competition, and even if the competition isn't perfect, we're doing it so that people don't have too much power, because they abuse that power. And they start censoring people, they start giving us a bad product, they start mistreating their employees, or they become an extension of the government to hurt us. A lot of people think corporations and governments are at odds, but they're on the same side. So right now, a lot of our stuff needs to go on funding competition so that the establishment monopolies are not absolute. Because we're seeing how corporations from the government are gaining control of our flow of information and basically telling us what we can and cannot post. And of course, some of it's reasonable, like you shouldn't post some things, and some things really are messed up. But it's been said, I think it was by some British chairman or prime minister or somebody, that they want to treat conspiracy theorists like terrorists. They even said it's time we start treating non-violent conspiracy theorists like terrorists. That means that whatever they say it's okay to do to terrorists, including torture and targeting your families, they want to do to you as a conspiracy theorist, even when they acknowledge that you're not violent. They said specifically, treat non-violent conspiracy theorists like terrorists. And I think the thing is that's why they keep trying to flood all of these truther circles with Nazis and stuff. And the sheer irony is that they're trying to make it that if you criticize the government, you're some kind of fascist. If you criticize the state, they're ironically calling you the ultimate statist for not being a statist. And they probably sent some of those mofos your way to make you look bad. Because those mofos have a funny way of just kind of being in the corner somewhere, vaguely agreeing with you. And then at the last minute, they show their ass when you finally get some clout. And all of everything you said gets thrown down the drain because they showed up and they basically sunk the ship with you. So keep that in mind. And I hate to promote gatekeeping, but it might be something we have to do. Because they could be from the government, whether they realize it or not. They could be from the government, or they could be directed to us through the government that infiltrated them. So this is something to keep. I think that it's like these flames were there organically, but the government poured fuel on them and then kind of directed the flames. All right, this is Ace and Beaky over and out.